Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Gertz, I want to quote the Admiral sitting to your right. He said the Flight 3 DDGs are a ship we must have. My concern, which won't be surprising to you, is that you've knocked out, I think, 4 ships in the future procurement. We're okay through 2022 on multi-year. My concern is a gap. And you take those ships out, we're talking about a new large surface combatant. We all know they take longer than we expect. Help me understand this decision, because China's vastly expanding their fleet. The DDG is the workhorse of the Navy. Pacific is a big ocean. Explain to me the decision to cut back on those DDGs. Yeah,
sure. I'll kind of give you mine from overall perspective and invite Admiral Kilby to jump in here. So I would agree with Admiral Kilby. If we're going to compete and win at the global scale, it's going to be on Flight 3 DDGs are going to be a firm backbone for that. The multi-year ends in 22. 2 or 3 budget cycles ago, we kind of were moving quickly into a large surface and combatant. If you notice in the budget, we have taken a little bit more strategic, I would say, pause on that in terms of making sure we've got all the things we need to do in prototyping and understanding the detailed requirements before we transition into that. I have not decided yet on what our contracting strategy would be for those destroyers after 22, but my strong sense is that will be another multi-year procurement. As
multi-year save the taxpayers.
It's so that's, while I have not formally declared that, I can't see a scenario where we wouldn't for the remaining destroyers. As we understand, when LSC, or the large surface and combatant, comes in play, we wouldn't do a multi-year or some similar kind of arrangement. And we do not want to make, we don't want to get that transition point wrong. I think we need both capabilities, but we're not going to put the Flight 3 destroyers at risk for the large surface combatant.
But you're proposing those cuts in Flight 3. How come?
Right now, it's given the flatline budget and all the other pressures, we had to balance that risk.
But this doesn't affect this year's budget, does it?
No, sir.
So we're talking about cutting ships in the future, and that's a future year budget.
Yes, sir. So in 21, we've got 2 ships in 21. We're executing the destroyer that was added. So I think we're good industrial base in 21. The reductions were in the FIDEP as we continue to look at how to balance all that with the resources available.
At that time?
At that time.
So those are decisions that will be made.
Yes, sir.
In the future. Admiral, you still want those Flight 3s?
Yes, sir, I do. But I want to echo what Secretary Gertz said. When we put the budget together, we followed 4 priorities: Columbia first, readiness recovery, lethality, and then capability as we could afford it. So we tried to balance those out and create the best program we could to meet those demand signals. So,
but I'm sure you're aware they're industrial base issues. I mean, the continuity is critical here. I know both of the yards are gearing up, hiring people to meet the demands of the Navy, and this isn't something you can just turn off and on like a switch.
Absolutely, sir. And again, we're trying to be very thoughtful on industrial base. We're going to have to work very closely. As we get in a little bit later in the budget, Columbia will be, of the existing SCN, about 33% of it. If we fund all of Columbia within that SCN account, and so that's going to mean some hard choices, and we're going to have to balance capability, industrial base, all of those different things. Some of the things that Senator Wicker's proposed in the Implementation Act in terms of giving us faster use of those tools, I think can help us, because if we do a multi-year contract, that can provide some stability from the year by year, which I think could help stabilize the industrial base.
Well, let me turn for a moment to the large surface combatant. When do you expect to start engaging with the industry?
So I think we've started to engage with industry on that. Again, there was a pause to push that slightly to the right. So we've set that up, and this is really Secretary Gertz's lane, a detailed design contract and then a follow-on contract in 28. So I think we're poised to try to apply the same lessons we learned from Frigate with that. But I also agree with Secretary Gertz that there's a very real need to get after that and to continue to produce Flight 3 just because of the pacing threat of what Senator Perdue talked about earlier.
What concerns me is if we have a gap in Flight 3s and large surface combatant takes longer, you end up with a capacity shortfall that could be in a crisis could be a disaster.
So from a requirements perspective, I think, sir, that what we're trying to say is the Flight 3, I think, will be a consistent platform for us well into the future until we're sure we have large surface combatant in hand.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can I ask you one more quick question?
Absolutely.
I think I'm scheduled to go down and see the Ford in a couple of weeks. How are we coming?
Yes, sir, I'll be with you.
When's the
And,
Ford, when are we ready to go?
So the Ford has been out since we finished the PSA. It's been out to sea roughly 50% of the time. We have qualified all the different aircraft types in the air wing on Ford. It is performing magnificently out there in terms of, it's first in class. First in class is hard.
Sure.
What I look forward to you is you talking to sailors.
Yard built the Zumwalt. I
Yes,
know
sir.
about first in class.
What I look forward to you and anybody else that we can get out there, which I'm confident will continue to make opportunities, talk to sailors and get their perspective. I mean, you can hear from me, you can hear from the generals and admirals here, but it's really in the sailors' eyes, and they're really excited. It's really reassuring to see how excited they are. We did 211 launches and catapults.
And they know best.
Yes, sir.
'Cause they're there
Absolutely.
on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. And so I look forward to getting you and anyone else out there to hear from them. Again, we're growing. They've got to, we put a lot on their backs. They've got to learn how to train. They've got to build some of the standard operating procedures. But the capability that ship brings now and enabling us to do lots of things in the future is also fairly eye-watering.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Admiral,